This episode of the Small Business Surgeon Podcast is brought to you by Texas Media Foundry. Engineer your reality at txfoundry.com.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's episode of the Small Business Surgeon Podcast, and I have a super treat in store for you guys today because my guest is an author, he is a public speaker, he's an entrepreneurship trainer and sales coach, and he is the head concierge over at Apex Entrepreneurship. Please welcome to the show, Robert Nelson. Robert, welcome.
So happy to be here, Sam. Thank you for having me.
I'm overjoyed to have you, Robert. You've probably got one of the more interesting stories of all the guys in the Apex network. But you're the concierge over there, right? So what is it you actually do right now?
Nothing. You know, that's the name they gave me. Said, here, whatever we don't want to do something, we giving it to you. No, actually, I've been with Ryan for years, but as the concierge, we have a lot of people in our organization. As you know, we have 3 different tiers in the organization, maybe 1,000 people in the entourage, a couple of 300 people in entrepreneurs, and a couple of 300 people in executives. But what generally happens is that the people who are engaged, that have direct coaching, that have assistance hands-on, they get a lot more done. So we got a lot of people who are in our entourage organization, and it kind of came about as a result of Ryan creating a digital product of his interactions one-on-one with his direct coaching clients. People wanted to have access to that, but they couldn't afford to pay $25,000 to come to the table. They joined the entourage and they got the digital product. So as the concierge, my responsibility is that when they need something and they don't know where to go to get it, they don't know who to get connected with, that they reach out to me. I give them some protocols as to how we do it, but we have a system in our office, man, where in essence, if I can't answer the question or I don't have the resource, we just click it up in our office and I'll ask Ryan, Drewby, Thomas, I'll ask you, right? Like somebody in the network, like, dude, this is what this person needs. How do we make this happen for them? And that's my responsibility.
Oh man, I like that.
Are here to help them win, period.
I like that. You're like Santa Claus. You go around, you make a list, you help them get their presents, man. I like that. But tell us a little bit about how you got into this role. Because when I look at your bio, I mean, now you're generally known as a problem solver and as a fixer. But as I look at your bio and you've got author and speaker and trainer on there, tell me a little bit about that journey. And I want to know about the stuff you've written as well.
Yeah. In fact, I had the opportunity to co-author a book with Og Mandino, who is the author of The Greatest Salesman in the World, probably one of the best-selling books ever written on the subject of sales. And the way that happened was kind of odd, and it relates to kind of what I do here. As you know, I'm heading up the Young Entrepreneurs Initiative. Yeah. What happened to me is that I'm from Chicago, right? And maybe when I was in my 20s and started to become conscious and realizing that I need to do something other with my life other than sit around and do nothing.
Well, what were you doing? What were you doing in your 20s?
In my 20s, chasing girls, man, just, kicking it in the streets and just, I'm living in the ghetto, man. I'm on the west side of Chicago. Just staying alive was an accomplishment, right? So
I got you.
But I noticed that when I really started looking at my community, I noticed that a lot of the young people were out here making a living selling drugs on the street. And I personally had a cousin that was like, I guess, New Jack City, kind of Wesley Snipes. He had a whole office, industry, employees, staff, marketing. So he was running a major organization on the west side of Chicago, but he was distributing dope. And I went to him one day, I said, dude, we gotta do something different because this is killing us. And he asked me this question, which started my journey. He said, what else am I going to do?
Amen. I mean, when you look at it like that and you've got kids in low-income Chicago, it's the easiest product to get a hold of to sell, to start your own business.
Yeah, and
it really is. Demand. Yeah, there's a huge marketplace for it. You don't have to be a great marketer to sell drugs,
Yeah.
You kids want some drugs? See?
Yeah, right. So I guess that started my journey because at the time, even though I looked at the situation, I'm like, okay, they need to sell something different, but I didn't know how to sell. I was oblivious. I've been working at the post office. So I actually went out and hired my first coach. Well, my mentor actually was Paul J. Meyer out of Waco, Texas. And Paul J. Meyer was a billionaire. And one of the things that he taught me, Paul built an organization called Success Motivation Institute. And one of the things that he taught me was sticks in my mind into this day. He said that spaced repetition is the mother of skill. And the reason he was able to build such a magnificent empire is because he went into corporations and companies to try to help them, their salespeople, their management teams, change their behaviors and improve production.
Break that down for me a second before you go too far into that. Space recognition? Break down that for us.
Spaced repetition is the mother of skill. What most people don't think about is that 90% of the activity that goes on to keep them alive on a daily basis is not handled by the conscious mind. It's handled by the subconscious mind.
That's the truth, yeah.
We have a tendency to say, okay, well, a subconscious mind handles us while we sleep. We get up in the morning like, okay, I got this. I'm going to take the wheel. I'm going to handle this myself. But their behaviors are not set in the direction that's taking them to where they need to go.
Okay.
So what Paul Meyer taught is that if you want to instill a behavior, you have to repeat it over and over until you build the kind of muscle memory that it becomes automatic.
Yeah,
Then
no doubt.
Transform your experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what he did that was different from many other trainers, he didn't just go in and do a seminar. He would leave them with a cassette tape. I mean, you might be old enough to remember what a cassette tape.
I do. I remember cassette tapes. Yeah.
Leave them with these cassette tapes, and he would give them the edict. He said, make your people listen to this over and over again until it changes their behavior. So that, to me, was one of the first epiphanies that really caused me to think. And when I was at his office one day, he had these scrolls along the wall, these 10 ancient scrolls. And I asked him, what is this? And that's when he introduced me to Og Mandino's work. So Og had 10 scrolls or 10 fundamental principles that people were to repeat consistently until they ingrained them within their consciousness. So it became a part of their life, their behavior, their personality. So I took those practices and I said, dude, this stuff is powerful. It actually transformed my life. I started to become effective in selling. I became the top salesperson in my company nationwide because I changed some behaviors. And I reached out to the publisher and said, man, I want to teach this to young kids because it wasn't about tactics, it wasn't about concepts or psychologies of sales. It was basic fundamental principles to live by. Simple.
I've just Googled them, so I can save them in my computer for after this interview because I really want to go. I really want to go lean into this. So that's what the clicking was. Please continue though. I'm enthralled by this.
I asked the publisher, I said, can I use this content to teach these young people these principles? Because I wanted to help these young people learn how to sell something more productive, right?
Of course, yeah.
He said, well, perhaps you can do that, but I need you to do something for me first. So he had me write a foreword for one of Og's books. And once I wrote the foreword for Og's book, he said, well, you seem to have some talent, so I want you to write a manuscript. So I'm gonna retain you to write a manuscript. So I wrote The Greatest Sales Training in the World. You can find it on Amazon, The Greatest Sales Training in the World. And when I wrote this book, it's more like a commentary on Og's principles, explaining and breaking down in practical terms, how do you take this concept and apply it in a real life situation? But one of the greatest things about that opportunity is that when I wrote that book, Og had just passed away when I published that book. And 10 of the top sales and management training experts in the world gave me contributions to that book because of Og's legacy and his impact. Tony Robbins, Mark Victor Hansen, Les Brown, Brian Tracy, the list goes on.
That's just a who's who, isn't it?
Yeah. So, because they recognize, matter of fact, Jim Rohn wrote the back cover. They recognize these principles are what they use to create the impact that they were creating.
Right.
That same concept is right now what we do, as you know, by living this G-code life. We're building new habits, man.
It works, dude. It works.
It's true.
I mean, so how does that translate then into kids? Tell me a little bit about what you're planning to do with this.
So what I did was, and I'm glad you said that because I want to give you part of a backstory.
Yeah.
Where I became successful, and I'm the top salesperson in my game. This is when I met Ryan Stewart.
Now, what were you selling at that point?
I was selling furniture, man. I was selling furniture, and one day, I hired Ryan to coach me, and I said, Ryan, I don't understand this social media digital marketing thing. I need some help. And I said, I'm selling furniture. Can you show me how to, enhance it, bring those tools to the table? So he called me down to his office. Now, Ryan is a clever dude, man. He called me to his office and said, come down here. We're going to create a funnel, take it apart for you, show you how it works. He recorded the session where he worked with me on a funnel for furniture. and he put it into the funnel closer program. So this dude was creating content to market while he's training me, right?
I mean, that's the smart thing to do.
It's brilliant.
You
It's
know?
brilliant. So what ultimately started happening is that I spent so much time. Well, I was only selling furniture on the weekends, but I became complacent, man. Right? I'm making all the money I need to make. I'm the top of my game, and but the thought was the people I'm communicating with, I can't identify with some of them. I can't have a conversation with them. I need to get around people who are at the top of their game so we can have some more engaging conversations. And that's how I started coming around this Apex family. Well, before it was Apex, it was the Entourage Push to Excellence.
Push to Excellence, right? Yeah.
So I was here then, and Ryan offered me a job. And as I started working for him, and I started seeing the transformation that he was bringing about in the lives of these people who were professional people. We in a room with maybe 10, 15 people at a time. And I could see they would come in the morning, 9 o'clock. And before they would leave it that evening, he would make the cash register ring using these strategies that he was teaching them. So I'm like, dude, this is heavy. And my thought was, I need to make sure I get this information to these young ones because the world has shifted. I saw probably maybe 8 years ago that the consumer market had changed as the way they do business. Oh, yeah. It wasn't just belly-to-belly sale. I was a belly-to-belly salesman. So I'm like, if the market is changing, and if I'm going to be able to impart something of value to this next generation, it must include this component because this is the trend of the future.
Absolutely.
Plus, most of them grew up with this technology. So they're adept at it, but they don't know how to use it as it relates to business because nobody's having that conversation with them.
Well, the thing is, the guys like us we're on the cutting edge of it. Now, we're not at the cutting edge of it, but we surround ourselves with people that are, and we go to get that understanding of it and we implement it in our businesses. But nobody that is teaching in high schools, for example, nobody that's mentoring the next crop of young business owners has access to the information and the sales tactics that we do. Right. And so I feel like an overwhelming obligation to share this with youth, with younger kids and with teenagers. And it's just, how do you get it in front of them when the people writing the high school curriculum haven't even thought to adapt it properly yet for what's happening on the internet? Because smartphones have only existed for 15 years. And now 95% of our initial interactions with anybody occur over a smartphone. And how can schools keep up with that?
I actually went and did a presentation before the school board. So I taught all the high schools in the Fort Worth Independent School District in my area. And what I did was I went and spoke before the school board and told them that they had an obligation to make sure that our young people get access to this kind of information.
That's the truth, man. Absolutely.
So much that they can do, but as a parent, I mean, I have children. My children were not in high school when I had this conversation, but I've had times when I had to speak up for my children. Like, dude, y'all not just finna railroad my kids and just in any old thing. This is my kids. But the thought is, if they don't see it, maybe it's the responsibility of those who do see it to do something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so I couldn't agree more.
For myself, man. Like, I'm not gonna wait for you to make this happen. If you don't make it happen, what am I gonna do? Get upset? No, these are my kids. These are our children. This is our next generation. It's our responsibility to make sure that they get it. And we have a network of so many different powerful, creative, talented, and influential people. And I have seen several mastermind organizations. Seldom have I seen one with the kind of reach, connection, and influence as this Apex community, because the people that are in here, not only are they winning, they represent what winning looks like at all times, but they also are loving in terms of willing to give, trying to help, helping each other. So my statement to Ryan was, I've been talking to Ryan for 5 years saying, dude, we got to teach these kids. That's not really his forte. But one day, there was a young guy, he's 12 years old. His name is Jace. Jace did a report in class talking about somebody that he looked up to, wanted to be like when he grew up, and it was Ryan Stewman. Ryan was so emotionally touched by the report. He like, dude, don't tell nobody I cried, right?
All right. Shh.
Don't tell nobody. But I said, man, we got to do something about this. He said, well, as long as it doesn't require me to do a whole bunch, because my plate is full, I'm doing 1,001 things, make it happen. And that's when we started coordinating to do an Apex youth scenario to bring young people to the table, expose them to these concepts, to these relationships, and start plugging them in, because we really need that next generation to be groomed and prepared to take the baton of responsibility as we move forward.
Amen. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We've got a healthy mix of employees, but I like looking at the 17 and 18-year-old kids that are moving from high school to college and looking for places to intern and looking to learn and grow. I feel like I'm doing a service when I work with those guys. And even though they end up, as employees and we pay them, it feels like I'm giving something back to have them in there. So what's the blueprint? You got anything you can share with us on what we're going to be looking at? Is it going to be older teenagers? Is it going to be something that because I've got two sons, one is 8 and one is 10, and I've told them both that they can quit school when their businesses do over $100,000 in revenue, and their mom is on board with this, and I don't necessarily believe school is the right kind of education, but I believe in continuing education from now until the day I pass away. I'll always be trying to learn something. Yeah. So education is supremely important. Don't think wrong. I'm going to let my kids quit school unfounded, but they want to become entrepreneurs. They William's in the office right now, working on stuff, and what kind of age range is this youth program going to mentor to?
Well, we're catering to ages 13 to 25 for the most part.
Yeah.
I need to speak to something that you just mentioned, because there's something that's a misconception that a lot of people have. Education is not necessarily the framework of the institutions that are right now catering to our kids' needs.
Absolutely.
The word education means to educe or to draw from within. Many of our institutions that are right now positioned as educational institutions are more informational institutions, which means they place in information inside of the heads of the children and asking them to regurgitate it properly. And if they don't, they get a bad score. They're not helping to draw out the infinite wisdom that's already in our children. So it's like a misconception that people have about this whole process of education. One of the things that I see is that as children start developing their own personalities, they identify areas of interest that they are have a proclivity toward, right?
Yes.
I.e., as an example, many of the people in our organization that are older, that are not as technologically savvy, sometimes they feel challenged interacting with social media, digital marketing, and they get frustrated. But imagine this: Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, who are the most influential people on the planet. Do you know that their digital marketing social media team are kids?
I did not.
Young people, college students, man. So they're people, these kids have a skill set and ability that's being overlooked when we're not really capitalizing on it.
You wouldn't believe. I mean, mine just he just left this last week. My I don't know what I want to call him, my social media kid. Like I've got a media company, so there's other people that do that stuff, but it was his sole focus. And he graduated and moved across the country. So, I didn't want to lose him, but it's really, as a business owner that deals with college kids, it's your job to nurture them, and then when they're ready, push them on and out into life. It's okay that he's left. But I feel like, I'm part of a generation of monkeys, and that we use tools and that we swing in the trees and everything else. And these kids that are 25, 28 and below, they're like a generation of fish, and they're born into this internet world and they just swim in it. Yeah. And the tide is rising and the monkeys are getting forced out. We're gonna drown, and we're gonna lose to a world full of fish. Because my kids swim in that technology. So all my TikTok videos, and then we have a TikTok account. I don't have it on my phone. It's probably at Small Business Surgeon. But all the TikTok videos, all the Instagram posts, the Instagram stories, all that kind of stuff, for me, is handled by my younger kids, because they can swim through that technology, whereas I'm just there like a monkey with a stick trying to poke at my phone, trying to figure it out. And that's just that's a 15-year age gap. And they crush it.
That's amazing. But you see, the fact that you see that, that is what I call a field for disruption,
Mm-hmm.
because there's opportunity here as adults or monkeys, as you refer to it. We have a symbiotic relationship that we can forge, because while they have this great skill set, almost innate ability to navigate those technological spaces, dude, we have experiential knowledge.
Oh, we have the wisdom, yeah.
From the
Yeah.
business surgeon perspective, that you can impart, that can really equip them with a know-how that they don't possess, but they definitely need in order to be able to navigate this business world that we live in, right?
Yeah.
It's a symbiotic relationship that if we marry the two, everyone benefits.
That's what I'm trying to do. I mean, like, and you know, my last 10 years have been spent in online marketing and in building websites and running traffic and all the digital arena. And I'm about one of the most experienced 41-year-olds I know in it. And yet, when I get around the 25-year-olds, I feel completely lost. You know, it's absolutely amazing.
It's amazing.
The distance that these guys are putting between us and them. And yeah, you're right. We need to focus on coaching them with the business fundamentals and let them run wild with the tech, dude. Because like, it's just unbelievable how quickly. Again, it's like a fish swimming, and you see how easily a fish swims, and then you watch a monkey swim, and you're like, right, he doesn't belong in there. And that's how it feels. It feels like the floodwaters are coming up, and I honestly, you know, within another 15 years, I'll probably be technologically retarded enough to where the kids have just passed me by completely.
You know, the reality is that the intellectual growth rate of a human species is going to be exponentially growing more rapidly than ever in the history of mankind. And
how do you feel about that?
Dude, I'm excited about it, because I'm looking forward to seeing the advancements that's going to come into play that create a greater enhancement for the human species and journey, the experience. But the thought is that knowing that these things are happening at such a rapid clip and it's just escalating, we got to get out in front of it and make sure that, okay, by the time this generation learns the pieces that they need to learn, we've already missed the point. So we got to start them young. We got to get in front of it, man. We got to get in front of it and show them not only about doing the business and handling the technology, but understanding the contribution to humanity, this planet and the species. There's a lot of other aspects. Right now, a lot more socialpreneurship is happening among young people. They're becoming more conscious of the need to be ecologically conscious, of the need to be socially conscious. And many of them are developing nonprofit philanthropic initiatives at a young age.
I know, it's incredible. And the one thing that I'm pinning some hope on for the future is that, you know, now we've got the ability to communicate relatively instantly with one another across the globe, is that we, you know, I don't want to talk about tinfoil hats and conspiracies, but we can see one power structure kind of just being eroded and being able to be replaced with something that's a little bit newer and a little bit better thought out and a little bit better thinking, whereas they're putting society first, and they're putting, you know, it's not so much all the wealth runs up. Right. People are starting to figure out that, and me especially, like, stop chasing dollars and start chasing impact, start chasing people, start chasing relationships. And I think as more and more people figure that out, we're going to see a change in the business landscape.
Dude, I will agree 150%. In fact, one of the things that I've seen evolve in this Apex community is the fact that the people that are a part of the community, the primary objective, the number one focus is not just making money and doing a transaction. It's relationships. This social capital is more valuable than physical capital.
Amen.
Because these relationships are opening up avenues and opportunities, creating entire industries, not only just businesses, but industries that are out, some of which are branching off from existing niches that are completely new industries. And what I've seen is that as these people in the organization, because as you know, they move up these tiers in the organization. Yeah. They get to a place where, you know, as executives, you guys, you don't really have to work if you don't want to work. But
I still do. Yeah, I'm not there yet.
I know it's in your DNA, right? I know. But the thought is, you get the opportunity to do a work of passion instead of just a work of necessity. What you're doing right here is not because you need to do this.
Correct.
It's because you choose to do this.
I want
right?
to do this. Yeah.
You see a need that exists in the market, and you're contributing the value that you have from your experience over the years, and with some of the guests that you have on your show. And I've listened to some of your guests. Dude, you guys are contributing great worth to humanity.
And as are you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before we get too far lost, and while we're still on the subject of the future, Neuralink. Are you in or are you out?
Neuralink.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I'm gonna pause on the Neuralink for right now.
I totally want in, but I'm scared to press the button. What if there's no way out once you go in? Like, yeah, I'm super excited for the I guess symbiosis, the right word, that can come between humanity and machines. I'm super excited for it, but I don't know whether to press that button or not. I want somebody else to go first.
I'm gonna tell you one of the things that I have learned, and that is, so much of humanity has access to a link that's not connected directly to the technology that they don't even use. And this is a link of infinite intellectual capacity. Infinite.
Let's go there then. Yeah, let's go.
You ever heard of the Akashic Records?
Say that one more time.
The Akashic Records.
Tell me about that.
Akash is a record of all existence, of all humanity's experience, not just in this solar system, but intergalactic experience. It's just like when I get on the phone with you, we're on this call, you somewhere else, but we having a conversation in real time. Do you think that our limited intellect, we can devise the technology that's more sophisticated than the intelligence that's been here for billions of years?
I don't believe so. How do we tap into that?
Tell you how you tap into that.
Let's go.
Many people like Dr. Brian Holly, who is a Reiki master, understand how to utilize the power of meditation to get into a space where you can transcend just your physical presence and actually tap into and hear the transmissions from higher sources. Dude, I can get online without a computer.
Well, now I'm gonna have to look into that.
Akashic Records, man, check it out. This is real. It exists.
All right.
Some people do it by accident. Some people do it deliberately. But
how do you spell it?
I don't know. Let me find out.
Because I want everybody to look at this. Akashic. I've kind of heard talk of it, but I've never touched it. And you know what? We're deep enough into the episode where we can take a quick time out and look at what this is, because it fascinates me.
It's spelled AKASHIC.
All right. So I'm going to Google this later on, and we'll put it in the show notes for the guys.
One of the strongest proponents of this is Nikola Tesla.
That's another guy that is super.
He was tapped in and turned on. He was getting information from outside sources, man. This is real.
Well, we're gonna have to look into how to tune into this, because it would be something pretty amazing to be able to access this kind of stuff. We know that vibration and frequency are the secrets to all of the universe. Yeah. And then there's that 369 thing, and then there's the perfect circle that keeps repeating and all that. You know, there's a whole lot of principles that I don't think we understand.
This episode of the Small Business Surgeon Podcast is brought to you by reengageme.com. Customer acquisition retargeting made easy. Generate more revenue for your business without taking time away from doing things you actually love.
So have you had any experience with this? Because, you know, I've seen people that do Reiki, and, you know, honestly, from my previous life, Reiki just seemed like a bunch of crystal bullshit. Now, knowing now what I know, and, you know, over the last couple of years discovering the way I live now, I'd be a little bit more open to exploring what that actually was. But, you know, when when you were raised the way I was, and you think the way I thought, anything with crystals in and all that other stuff, that was just what the weird girls in high school did. You know, so tell me a little bit about it, man.
Well, I will tell you this. I've actually had an encounter. I've had an encounter where I was given some information that's outside the scope of my personal knowledge, right? There are times when you can have a dream, and many people accomplish things from dreams that they experience because they're able to interpret the message from the dream and translate it into something in this physical reality that's above and beyond what they're accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
So in my experience, I had a dream. And in this dream, I met a man or an entity that had some secrets that he shared with me, right? So what he did was this, and I've rarely shared this, but I'm gonna share it with you because I hear you asking the question. He said, he was explaining to me how you create any outcome that you want, anything you want to achieve in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cause and effect. And as he was explaining it, it was interesting. So I started to look for something to write it down. However, he never paused or hesitated, even though he saw me looking for something to write it down. And then he paused and he said, okay, now I'm gonna show you how this works. And he walked over into the corner of a room where there were mobiles, like in the science lab where you see planets hanging from the ceiling. It was a mobile hanging from the ceiling, right? And he was standing probably about 50 feet away from it. And then he said, now I'm gonna show you how this works. And it's almost as if he blew and it moved, right? It moved. And then he turned to me. And when he turned to me, he said, now you do it. What was so amazing about this phenomenon is that when he said this, not only was I amazed that he asked me the question, but I was amazed that based on what he had just told me, I believed I could do it. So this is what I did. I went and stood in the same place that he was standing. And then I opened my mouth, and it was as if a living entity came out of my mouth whose sole purpose for existing was to accomplish what was in my mind. And once it shifted it in the way I wanted it to go, it vanished. And then he turned to me and he said, now you understand. Now, what was amazing about this is that even though it was impactful to me, when I woke up, I could not remember the dream. Until probably about 3 years later, I overheard a story about Daniel, who had the responsibility to tell King Nebuchadnezzar his dream that the king had forgot. He said, not only interpret the dream, but I had forgotten the dream. So you got to get the dream and give me the interpretation of the dream.
Right.
So when I heard the story, it dawned on me. I'm like, you know what? If Daniel can get a dream that somebody else forgotten, surely I can get a dream that I have forgotten. Mm-hmm. And I asked the question. Now, this is where communication comes in. I asked the question in faith. I asked the question, I laughed out loud. I'm like, dude, I'm about to hear this. When I asked the question that very same day, a friend of mine had shared some information with me. And when I took it home and started listening to it, he started to explain that humans have the power of life and death, and they're creating outcomes by their intention and their communications, even though they don't know it. Many times we're creating outcomes that we don't want because our mind is on the wrong thing and our mouth is declaring the wrong thing. So when I started to understand that and started to apply it in my own life experience, I started to get more intuitive insights. I started to make myself more receptive to say, okay, I'm going to ask a question because I know there's an infinite intelligence that's greater than me that can give me the answer if I sit still enough to listen.
Dude, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
You know, the similarities there, though, between what I'm going through and
Really?
the changes that I've seen in business by embracing that positive and manifesting the things I want and focusing on the things I want and pushing out those negative thoughts and eliminating the people around me that were negative with it as well. And just by focusing on what I want and the positivity and how much impact I can bring to a situation, it is as though I'm speaking shit into existence. So, you know, we might be on different, we might have different words for the story and the effect there, but I think what you're getting at is it's incredibly deep. It's deeper than I'm qualified to go, but I think there's definitely a thread that attaches to actual reality, and there is the ability within us to create absolutely anything we want. Like look at you with the group for the young entrepreneurs. Like you didn't just say, well, this is negative, there's no training for entrepreneurs. You said, how can I positively affect all these people? And you spoke it into existence, and here it is about to exist. You know,
and imagine the power and the impact they have, because somewhere along the line they're gonna need guidance from people like yourself that can say, okay, because you have created the results, right? You're not theorizing this stuff, man. You have done these things, right? So they're going to need not only to be a part of a community and have access to the opportunity, but they're going to need from an experiential level, from veterans like yourself, how these things are sold. How do these things work? So one of the things that I asked many of the executives, and some of the executives already offered to come to the table, I said, I want you to light the future or create a light for the future in this respect. Imagine if you were speaking to your younger self. What would you tell your younger self to help them navigate and avoid some of the pitfalls and some of the traps, some of the mistakes, some of the regrets that you have experienced? Yeah. Not to say that they will always listen, but the point is, if you could reach out to your younger self and assist in this experience along this journey, you would do that. But what we don't realize is that when we reach out to our young, we're doing just that. This is us, dude. This is us.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole reason I built the Small Business Surgeon podcast. Was not about generating money at all. Heaven knows we don't do that over here. What it's about was, I went through so much as an entrepreneur when I first really became successful and lost all of that money through not understanding what to do with it, not being a good steward of it, the weight gain, the alcoholism, all that shit that I went through. The reason I have this podcast is because I went through that. I had it all, I lost it all, and I've got most of it back again now. We by the end of this year, I'll be far surpassed where I was. But there was that time sitting on my buddy's couch, going, "Well, fuck, what do I do? Do I just get a job? Do I give up? And then you don't realize that every single successful self-made entrepreneur has at one point caught fire or blown up or crashed or burned or whatever it's been. And the reason I make this podcast is so guys like you and I can talk to ourselves from 15 years ago. And I'm imagining there's guys in their 20s and 30s listening to this that are just now getting their first taste of success and not understanding what to do with it and how to manage it. So that's the entire reason I put this on.
Dude, one of the things I want you to consider is this, because you're a very resilient man, right? You have a degree of fortitude and resiliency that is uncommon, dude, for real. But the thought is, many times people don't take in consideration that there are other people that are going or may confront some of the same circumstances that may not have the same level of resilience. Some of them just choose to check out. Suicide is an epidemic among young people. Some of them just decide, you know what? I don't want to play this game anymore. I don't want to even be here. So not only they'll hurt themselves or they'll hurt somebody else. Hence the bullying that takes place. Oftentimes, if we would just reach out, there are a lot of the ills that we could avert by just helping this person make it through that rough spot.
And that is why I do it. I have a group of business owners, and about 6 weeks after I started the group, one of the fellas, I didn't know him well at all, but one of the fellas took his own life in the group, and it made me really think on what I was doing and why I was doing it. It made me double down again on the podcast and on giving more out, because if I can prevent that happening again, then the whole thing's worthwhile. But it is a very real thing. I mean, you call me resilient, dude, but I didn't have a choice, man. When there's so, because like when my company collapsed, I was putting anywhere from 40 to 50 grand a month in my pocket and having the best time ever, and there was money in the business and all this other good stuff going on, and my career, my actual qualifications are in oil and gas law, which it caps out at about 150, 180 a year. And though, you can go live on 150 a year very happily, but 150 a year is very hard when you've broken that $50,000 a month barrier and you're just flying along. And you call it resilience, but I don't think I had a choice, man. It was, I had tasted that and I needed it back again. And so that's why I did.
Well, I'm glad you put it that way, because you had an incentive. You were
Oh yeah.
incentivized. You knew what it tasted like. You had the experience. But the reality is this. The reality, and this is profound. All we have is choice.
Hmm.
That's the only thing we really own, our choices.
That's true. And like Rush said, even if you decide not to do anything, you've still made that choice. You still chose not to handle it.
For real?
No, you're right, dude. Like, I wasn't expecting to get a lesson in prophecy from Robert today, but you're killing it, man. You're like the deepest guest ever. And I love it. I love it. I'm really not sure where to take the conversation from here, mate.
Well, I want to ask you a question.
Sure, go for it.
Based on where you're at, and I've seen part of your journey, man. It's phenomenal. Like, you talk about how you have gone through something, you had it all, you lost it all, you came back, and as you were sharing with me right before this podcast, that one of the things that the passion that drives you is because you've heard and seen the stories of several people who go through the same stuff, and you make the decision like, well, let me see how I can create something where we can go and help get this fixed. Like, I asked about the name surgeon, because you like a doctor, dude. You're like a doctor. You healing folks, but in a whole different way, man. In terms of what you're doing now, where do you see it going with this? Because you are philanthropic in your efforts.
Bro, I never set out to become a consultant. And I've got several consulting clients that pay good money, and I don't get what I want out of it, which is weird. I'm helping them, but it's not scalable. It's not impactful. I think the next thing for Small Business Surgeon as a brand is to keep obviously doing the podcasts and to go to appear on more podcasts, but really like look at how I can have an impact from a group coaching standpoint. Lower the price down, make it in that $500 a month range, and really like give to as many entrepreneurs as possible over the course of the month by pouring directly into them on Zoom and in group coachings and stuff. I think that's where the brand's going to go for me. But this is my passion project. I enjoy my podcast. I love doing it. I love giving. I don't run any commercials on it. I really don't sell stuff on it. I'd love to sell a phone site subscription every now and again, or plug Rate Tracker for Adam Neese or any of that kind of stuff. But this is my passion project, and I don't know that I will push it to, because you put 100 people in 5 different coaching groups and you're at $50,000 a month right there. But I don't know that I want to do that. I've got my feet in a lot of different little fingers and a lot of pies, and I've got multiple streams of income going on, and I'm as happy as can be, man. So I'm gonna let the world guide me, man. I'm just gonna throw it out there and see where we go.
I'm gonna tell you something that I have seen, and I've been watching your journey, man, is that the contribution that you're making, the value in the contribution that you're making is priceless.
I hope so for somebody, dude.
Yeah, equate that to any kind of financial remuneration in terms of what you're doing. And one of the things I do know is that a part of these relationships is that, you got a network of great influencers, some very powerful international influencers that you connect with on a regular basis. And one of the things that my commitment is that as people like yourself say, okay, I'll put my hand up, I want to help. Dude, I'm gonna hold you to the fire. I'm gonna hold you accountable. Accountability is one of our things that we thrive on here at Apex.
Yeah.
Don't say it if you ain't gonna do it.
Well,
when you say it, dude, we gonna get it done because I'm accountable. I'm accountable to humanity as you are. But you're doing some mighty works, man. Some mighty works.
Thank you. I got a whole bunch of people holding me accountable over at Apex. That's what they're there for. I was hanging out with a bunch of the Goon Squad guys the other night after the execs meetup, and I managed to get involved in a $5,000 bet that that my first book would be published before August. So I better get to work on that.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the Goon Squad, because they're actually going to have probably their inaugural Apex Live event on the 3rd of February.
Yes, sir.
Goon Squad is going to be here in Dallas, and if you can get in where you fit in, because they're going to be here in Dallas on the 3rd of February. Of
You know
this year.
what? I'm going to make sure that this episode airs right before that. I'm going to bump some stuff around because there's people in front of you now. The 3rd is a Thursday, so I'm going to make sure this airs on Monday the 31st, which is a couple of weeks from now, so we get extra plug for the Goon Squad, because number one, I love those guys, but we actually, Brian Lewis and I have a podcast we do Monday evenings, and we interviewed Thomas Keenan on it last night. We had Chris Whitehead on it the week before, and I think Drewby's up next week and Brian McKittrick's up the week after. So all in a run up to Goon Squad Live, which I will be at. Obviously, I'm being an exec. I'll be there for the Flying Friday the day after. So yeah,
I really respect the camaraderie, but also the accountability, dude. Because those dudes ain't playing.
No,
they're like, okay, they pushing the envelope, man. And I just dig that because it makes you want to do better. It raises the bar.
You know, like I can tell you tell Mike Claudio or Thomas Keenan or Chris Whitehead you're gonna do something, dude. It's better to just do it and get the blood on your hands rather than you'll never run far enough. You can't let those guys down. No, you got to produce. And I love the accountability. I do. I love it. It's honestly, man, the change I've seen. I don't want this to be an hour-long Apex commercial because it really isn't. I want it to be more about you and your works within Apex. The change that it's made in me in the last 20 months has just been incredible. What are some of the standout changes that you see occurring in entrepreneurs as they come through the program, dude? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm going to tell you one of the most phenomenal changes was the transformation I saw in Ryan Stewman, right? Mm-hmm. Because as a leader, Ryan's a hothead. He's got a plan. He want to take action, but at some point in time, he reached the place where he started listening to the audience, started really listening. What do people need? Right? It's one thing to get out here, you're selling a product or a service, and you just want to run your numbers up, run the scoreboard up. There's another thing when you genuinely want to help this person create a better outcome, and you start listening. From that is what I've seen the transformation that has taken place in the whole Apex community, because as you listen to what the needs of the community are, they will tell you where the cutoff man is, where we dropping the ball, what needs to be adjusted. And this is one of the things that I'm so stoked about working with the young entrepreneurs, because after coming through the pandemic, a lot of the people who have businesses were difficult trying to get employees, competent employees that would stick with the companies, right?
Right.
So one of the natural fits, and I heard this conversation happen at one of the executive events, was, you need to grow your own. You need to find the young ones that have an interest in the niche or industry that you're in, that you can cultivate, that will fit within your company's culture, that will be there for the long haul and contribute their own ingenuity to help you continue to grow and scale. And it's like the thought never dawned on some people that, dude, our acres of diamonds are right in front of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. I mean, I have the most success with raw talent that has the right core values. If they're right in the middle, if they're right in their heart, we can train them anything. It's having the desire to succeed, and it's having the same core values as us already established. Leave everything better than you found it. Show up on time. Do what you say you're going to do. Be coachable. Be humble. Own your mistakes. Those core values that we operate on. If a kid has those core values, I don't care what their skill sets are. We're going to find a place for them, and we're going to train them and develop them ourselves. And that way, I'm getting malleable young minds that I can mold in the way that I want. And in return, I'm helping them to get the life that they want. I'm helping them to build their life. This isn't like a job. We do life together. I spend so much time with these guys. They have to fit. They have to be the right fit. And I couldn't do a tenth of the shit I do without my team. Man, they are so valuable and they are so good. And all this podcast produces itself. I don't touch it. It's wonderful, the team I've got. But they're all working with me towards a common goal. and then they're all working towards their own individual goals as well. And there's paths for them. Every single key player in my organization is either vested or has a path to vesting. Like, I'm trying to make this is our mission. We're all going to work together and we're all going to make the world a better place. And the guys that buy in, you can train the skill sets. You just can't train the core values or the desire. So
I want to share one idea with you. I know we got out on time, but
we got a couple minutes. Yeah.
That one of the things that happened when I first started this journey is I was an artist in school, college, high school. I was an artist, had some awards, whatever. But I never really wanted to be a starving artist. So I always associated that word starving. When I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Starving artist.
NFTs, man. NFTs. Get yourself.
Yeah. It's a whole different game now. But
it is now, yeah.
When I abandoned the art, I remember, I started making this shift in my life. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's possible. Anything I want to do can be possible. So I started drawing again, and I created a piece of machinery for a drafting board at the time. I think I was in my 20s when I did this. And I did it because there were lines that I was trying to create that the drafting boards that I was purchasing didn't have the capacity to create. So I created my own tool. And I thought to myself, I said, it would really be cool if I knew where to go or who I could talk to that would help me bring this to market. And I was up in the middle of the night, it must have been about 2:00 in the morning. And I remember, as if it were audible voice, when I asked that question, he says, whatever you would have men do unto you, do that for other people. And that's what really lit the fire under me to say, dude, if I help somebody make their dream come true, it's like, imagine this. Let's say you got Aladdin's lamp. You got 3 wishes.
Yeah.
My 3rd wish would be for some more wishes, right? It's like, so this for me, if I help somebody else make their dream come true, it's like, I'm getting a wish.
Yeah.
I'm actually vicariously experiencing their joy.
No, it's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And the way this boils down, Robert, the simplest way that I can see it is if you want every single person to be happy to see you and smile when they see you, the first thing you have to do is be happy to see them and smile when you see them. And I mean, you're a perfect example, or Danny Galvez, perfect example. Like, because you carry yourself into that conversation with a big smile and it's genuine. And the people I'm around are all happy to see me. They all smile back because why? Because I come at them first with that smile. And that's the simplest way to explain that you get what you want out of life by giving it first. Like, dude, just give it.
That's profound, man.
Yeah, and smiles are contagious too. So if you make somebody smile, chances are the next conversation they have, they're going to lead with a smile as well. So it never just stops at one.
You're right.
My man, we're about up on time, but
thank you so much, man.
Dude, before we clock out, tell me the name of your book and tell everybody where they can find you online and where they can follow you, dude.
Okay. The name of the book is The Greatest Sales Training in the World. You can find it on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Robert Nelson, the personal Apex Concierge. I encourage you to reach out to myself, Sam, or anybody in the network, because my objective is to help as many people as possible become the most elite versions of themselves. And it's not fictitious, because I want to be a contributing force just like you are for good, man. So feel free to reach out to me.
That's the plan. All right, we will put those in the show notes. We'll put all your socials up there so people can follow you. And please go and check out his book. I know I'm going to. I will add it to the stack on my coffee table. It's dude, for every one I read, I pick up 3 more. It's like, come on, how you get through them? But no, I'm looking forward to digging into that and actually learning some of the lessons of the how do you say Akashic?
Akashic.
Learning some of the lessons of the Akashic records that Robert has opened up my mind to. So, Robert, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
I didn't know what I was in for, Sam. You a deep dude, man. You a deep dude. I appreciate you, man.
Oh, it's all good, man. Guys, do me a favor, run on over to the show notes, check out Robert's socials, give him a follow, and pick up a copy of his book. And as always, if you have enjoyed the show, if it's made you think a little bit, made you laugh, made you cry, do us a favor, post a review on iTunes. It helps get the word out, helps spread the show, and show us a little love. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, and as always, I'll be back this Friday with Friday Fire. You'll do the right thing, be good, stay safe, and have a great week.
This episode of the Small Business Surgeon Podcast is brought to you by Soapbox, the new home of censorship-free media. Find out more at soapboxnews.com.